What is going on, you guys? Full-time whistle just blew. The All Blacks have beaten Ireland in Chicago. I'm not in Chicago. I made that mistake in 2016. I knew that if I was there in person, I was going to jinx them again. So I'm actually here in Seattle. I'm doing an acting job this weekend, but I just watched the game, and man, what a game of two halves. Like, if you had checked in with me at halftime, I would have been frustrated. I would have been exasperated with how clunky the All Blacks were. I would have said that absolutely Ireland deserved to be ahead at halftime and frankly looked like they deserved to win the game. I mean, all this talk about Ireland being undercooked, not in that first half. They looked more fluent. Jamison Gibson Park was winning the halfback duel up until the 40th minute mark. The All Blacks were the ones who looked totally undercooked, totally out of sorts, and there's a couple of reasons behind that. You can't go past the fact that the All Blacks lost their captain a couple of minutes into the game. Scott Barrett went down, his knee was bloodied, goes off pretty much immediately after limping around gingerly. Not a good look. Pretty soon after that, Jordie Barrett goes down. And this was after a red card-inducing hit on Beauden Barrett straight in the face. I mean, not a good day to be one of the Barrett brothers. So, look, I understand losing two linchpin players, including your skipper, is going to destabilize the team. But nevertheless, the All Blacks were just absolutely looking like a sports car that was backfiring in heavy traffic in the first half. And there's a bigger picture here. We're trying to woo the Americans. We're trying to show them that this is a good sport to invest in emotionally. Well, after that first half, I was thinking, man, you know, with the World Series 7th game happening right now, capturing the public imagination in the States, Blue Jays versus Dodgers, with that going on, with the NFL in full swing, I don't think we're going to be stealing many eyeballs away to our code anytime soon. And yet the second half happened, and I'm not just euphoric as an All Blacks fan that we reversed that result from 2016. I actually felt the second half was a really good sampler of what rugby union can be. Skillful play from both sides, wide, expansive backline moves. There was some razzle-dazzle. And when the All Blacks finally got rolling in that last 20 minutes, we saw, I don't want to say vintage All Blacks, but we saw moments where they were certainly at their peak for the year. So a game of two halves, like I said, a clunky start from the All Blacks. But boy, did they find their footing, and boy, did Ireland fall off the pace in that last quarter after looking like they might run away with the game. You know, with a pretty impressive and slick first half, this was really one-way traffic towards the end. New Zealand got a hold of the set-piece battle, and they had that stable platform. Their scrum came to the fore, and they were really able to hurt the Irish with their running game. But I got to tell you, speaking of the set piece, neither Lineout covered themselves in glory today. I mean, that's a nice way of putting it. It was shambolic, chaotic, overthrows, missed throws, not straight throws. I mean, who do you even give it to? I'm going to have to check the statistics on that one. But I did notice that New Zealand was starting to pick off some of the Irish throws in the second half. Josh Lord, in particular, who came on for Scott Barrett, did a great job pilfering line-out ball. That was the sort of performance that I said he needed. I said that in the preview. I singled out Josh Lord. I said, this guy's a good player, but he's been around a long time on the periphery of the All Blacks. He's never quite settled himself in the squad. Well, if Barrett is out, boy, are we going to need him. And he had a really good showing today. Leicester Fainga'a-Anuku also showed that we need his physicality, we need his punch. Whether it's starting at 13 or coming off the bench, this guy has to be in the match day 23. Yes, a couple of mistakes out there, but that's what you get with a guy who is all action, creating so much, thundering into the line. Now we can call this a Grand Slam tour. I didn't even want to say that before this game, because my feeling was, you've got a banana peel straight up. Ireland and Chicago, why on earth are we writing off the Irish? It was not that long ago that they were unbackable favorites to win the Rugby World Cup. Like, how short are our memories? And frankly, you know, there were times today where they looked like Ireland at their best, but the consistency wasn't there. And ultimately, this result, 26-13, it is going to lead pundits to ask the question, is this an Irish team in decline? Are there just too many players north of 30 right now? But let me break down the game for you. So things got off to a simply bizarre start with a red card that I just didn't really care for. I understand to the letter of the law, yes, Tyburn hit Jordie Barrett right in the face. But talk about a hospital pass. I mean, Barrett collected this ball really a meter or two from Tyburn. I mean, he really wasn't set up to tackle. The thing that probably did him in was there was a bit of a shoulder charge motion. Now, I don't think it was particularly malicious. I think it was sort of instinctive. What was he thinking? I don't think he was thinking. But hey, that's how they want to referee it. So a red card to Ireland. And, of course, as a New Zealander, I wanted my boys to win. I would welcome any advantage. But however, I was happy about the fact that it was only 20 minutes. 20 minutes for this red card. I wouldn't have minded that rule in the last Rugby World Cup final. But anyway, that's ancient history now. So the Irish were able to replace Tyburn after 20 minutes. And look, it kind of woke the Irish up. I mean, they were actually better and got the first points on the boards in that stanza. The All Blacks were very sloppy in the first 20 minutes of this game. It was like they were getting thawed out. They were coming out of the New Zealand winter. They were just slowly microwaving back to form. Yeah, there were a couple nice moments from the All Blacks, but in general, they were getting isolated on attack and they were turning the ball over. In the 11th minute, Jordie Barrett goes down in absolute agony. I mean, you thought he'd done something terribly wrong, and it was pretty astonishing when his knee got strapped up and he decided to keep going. He did retire off the field 15 minutes into the game. So we're going to find out what's going on with Scott Barrett, what's going on with Jordie Barrett. The Barretts are in the injury ward this week. Again, like I said in my intro, that did not help the All Blacks at all. Maybe the All Blacks were a little bit discombobulated from that, or maybe Jamison Gibson-Park is just the maestro. I mean, the way that he started rolling in the next few minutes, hitting his players in the breadbasket with those long, accurate, crisp passes. Guys like Jack Conan, Josh Van der Fleer, they were hitting it up. They were getting over the All Blacks advantage line. Gibson Park just laying these balls right into the sternum of his players, like just inch perfect. It ended up being a try to tag Furlong, and well-deserved. The Irish attack was humming as the All Blacks attack was pretty much stalling out. You got the feeling it might be a long day at the office for New Zealand if they didn't pull finger, and they did. They got a try to Ardie DMack. It came off a bust from Leicester Fainga'a. I mentioned him earlier. You're going to hear his name again. He was so damaging with his runs today. But also, it was Will Jordan who was able to straighten off the offload from Fainga'a. But listen, let's give a shout out to the tight forwards who really created the space for Ardie DMack to score, because the ball kind of went coast to coast, and it was Josh Lord, and it was Ethan de Groot with beautiful hands. It created the overlap, created the space for Savea. High skill from the New Zealand tight forwards. And that was a beautiful glimpse of what was to come in the last 20 minutes, where you felt like, okay, if our big boys can execute their skills at that level, yeah, we could rip this Irish team apart. We'd be waiting a while before that started happening again. Not much to speak of for the rest of the half, but the Irish were looking more likely, again, at the start of the second half, and I liked how they varied their game plan. They went to some short kicks when they were getting near the All Blacks 22. James Lowe, Jamison Gibson-Park, they were popping little balls through, but there were nice clean-up jobs coming from Will Jordan and Roigard to just get the All Blacks out of trouble. We needed a big play to reverse the momentum. We got that from Ardie DMack. He had one of those clutch, quintessential Ardie turnovers in our own 22. We needed that. You felt like that was a little bit of the All Blacks pulling the momentum back in their favor. And now the lineout starts rolling a little bit more. We were still a bit ropey on our own throw, but Josh Lord is starting to pick off Irish balls. This was not a case of who had the better lineout. It was more like whose was worse, right? Like, whose was more awful? I mean, not a good day for lovers of the lineout. What do you guys put it down to? I'd love to hear your comments making sense of why the lineouts were so poor at times from both teams. Might just be a case of personnel. Look, we lost our skipper, Scott Barrett. He's obviously a primary target for those short and mid lineout receptions for the All Blacks. So he was off. I mean, Josh Lord's very good in the lineup, but that is unsettling. And then I guess the red card too to an Irish lock. Number 5 goes off for Ireland, Tyburn. So 2 really instrumental lineout players went off. But there was some rot even beyond that. Just, neither hooker, Dan Sheehan or Cody Taylor really were finding their mark today. In the 56th minute, a big roar from the crowd. Bundee Aki came on, and I got to give a shout out to the Ulster man. McCloskey was brilliant today. He might not be the absolute wrecking ball that Bundee Aki is, but that Irish midfield, McCloskey and Ringrose, it did look pretty solid at times, and I felt that McCloskey was just able to get inside the All Blacks' kind of arrow defense. Often there's that rush in midfield. They let you go wide, the All Blacks, because there's kind of fool's gold on the wings. They can then scramble and shut that down. But McCloskey was just getting inside the point of the arrow of that All Blacks defense. And I was pretty impressed by his footwork. And, he's 33 years old now. He's been around for a while. I thought he played with a lot of energy, made me think this guy really could be an important member of the Irish World Cup squad in 2027. Another big momentum turner here was, the Irish were attacking from their own half, and Fabian Holland just got a beautiful scrambling tackle on Crowley. He held on for dear life. It led to an All Blacks turnover. The All Blacks go for the corner. You knew they needed to score soon. The ball goes out to Jordie Barrett. He gets crunched in what looks like another red card in the making head-on-head tackle. But actually, you look at the replay, it was a textbook tackle. It's just that Jordie Barrett got whiplash from this legal below the collarbone tackle. You almost thought, okay, well, here's the third Barrett who's going to be going to the hospital tonight. But a little bit of momentum shift there for the All Blacks. Not long after that, instead of taking some points off a penalty, in the 61st minute, the All Blacks go for a quick tap. It is quick thinking. Mighty Williams ends up going over the line. And you can thank Cody Taylor for that. He first got this movement rolling, head down, straight for the try line. You thought he was going to go for it, but he actually flung out a beautiful ball to Wallace Satiti. It ends up getting transferred to Mighty Williams. The All Blacks are in. Oh, my God. I apologize to whoever's in the room next door in this, Hyatt hotel here in Seattle. I screamed bloody murder. I was so relieved. This was the first time that the All Blacks went up in the game. 14-13. First time the All Blacks led. Damian McKenzie's now on for the All Blacks, and Roigard fires a rocket to Caleb Clark off a solid scrum. He kicks downfield. The All Blacks are starting to play down the right end of the field as we get to the pointy end of the game. The All Blacks are finally starting to click, and I mentioned DMac's on. Well, he is now teaming up beautifully with Jordie Barrett. They conspire together to absolutely rip a hole in the Irish midfield. DMac fires a ball. It hits Satiti. He goes in right under the posts. Now the All Blacks are rolling. They've found a way through that Irish rush defense that made them look so pedestrian in the first half. They varied their game here well. Okay, there was a reasonable short kicking game from the All Blacks at times that just kept the Irish guessing. They didn't just automatically go wide. We were starting to see inside balls from the All Blacks, and with that added physicality from Leicester Anuku. And a reasonable game from Quinn Tupaia. Didn't necessarily excel like he did in his last couple of outings against the Wallabies, but he straightened the attack at times pretty well. And that was where we started making inroads. And the Irish rush D was starting to look a little bit vulnerable to some of the All Blacks handling. Once our skills were on display, the execution was there. Look, we looked the much better team in the last 20 minutes. I'm thrilled to say that, because we did not look better in the first half by any stretch of the imagination. In that last quarter, there was quite a gulf between the teams. And I think also, the All Black scrum really went up a notch in the last 20 minutes, and that's what allowed the backs to shine and start cutting some holes in the Irish D. Pretty simply, we knew it was going to come down to physicality. The All Blacks were now winning the physical collisions regularly. The Irish are desperate to get back into the game. It's a 2-score game now. They end up pushing the passes way too much. Turnover to the All Blacks. They get a scrum. Roigard comes off the back of the scrum. An absolute dead set Roigard special. He steps around 4, 5, maybe 6 players, gets the ball over the line. There's the exclamation mark that you wanted as a New Zealander. The All Blacks have absolutely put the game on ice at this point. So there you go, guys. I was really frustrated at halftime. Obviously, I'm in an ebullient mood now. All Blacks are inconsistent, but, really, when this team of 2025 clicks, they're close to as good as they've ever been. There are purple passages of play. they're just not sustaining it like some of the great All Blacks teams of the past. But if they can build on that, if those purple passages can last a bit longer, you do get the feeling there are the seeds of a really, really good test side here. So an important win for Razor Robertson. And, just to single out a few names again, I got to go back to Fainganuku. I got to say his name one more time. I think that physicality is something that we have really been missing in midfield and on the wing. Loving what he's bringing there. I'm enjoying the optionality of Caleb Clark when he starts. There was some nice deft work in the air, collecting crossfield kicks from Bowden Barrett, collecting a restart from Bowden Barrett. That was very appealing. Will Jordan made a couple of mistakes, pushed a few passes, but in general, he cleaned up well. He got the All Blacks out of trouble. And look, Damian McKenzie too. That dual playmaker scheme really worked. When he came on and combined with Bowden Barrett, it did rip Ireland apart. Wallace Satiti too made a very impressive cameo off the bench, but I think you'd have to say Peter Lakai did pretty good getting around the field. I liked what I saw from him. Definitely a big performance from Josh Lord. He had to step up with the skipper going down. He did that. He'll be better for this week's hit out. And look, if he can keep stealing line-out ball, that's going to really help. That's going to really help on this Grand Slam tour. The All Blacks need all the possession they can get. And with Fabian Holland and Josh Lord out there, both very good at picking off opposition lineouts, you feel that there might be a game, whether it's Wales, whether it's maybe Scotland, where we could actually feast on opposition lineout ball if we're really clicking. But we need to win our own ball too. And, Cody Taylor probably won't remember this game too fondly, except for the fact that we got the win. All right, guys, sound off below. Let me know how you think the All Blacks are tracking. Are we looking good for the Grand Slam? Or did Ireland expose a few cracks in that first half that have you worried for the likes of Scotland and England? Send this video to someone who loves rugby. Like, subscribe, and I'll be back for another one real soon. Until then, take it easy. Bye for now.